So, the Maran, that's Rabbi Yosef Karo, עושה 30 יום קודם הפסח, that means 30 days before הפסח, שואלים בהלכות הפסח. That means a month before the Pesach start, we should start studying the law of the Pesach. Why is it? So, according to the Pshat, and that's the main answer, because Pesach is full of laws. The law of Pesach, it's so complicated. There is so many laws that it's better to start learning it a month before to refresh it. So from here we see that Pesach is a very important, obviously, festival for us. And we start a month before to start practicing and to start to understand the law of Pesach. But what does Pesach mean? The word Pesach. Why did they call Pesach Pesach? How many of us know? Pesach, Mishon Pesach. What does it mean, Pesach? To pass over. נכון? Sorry? Yeah. So there is two explanations for the word Pesach. Like all you know, that during the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Makat Bechorot helped the Jewish people when he wanted to redeem them, he asked the Jewish people to put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost, and so he can see which one is a Jewish house, which one is not. That means that when he brought the plague of Makat Bechorot, the plague of the firstborn, he passed over the Jewish houses. That's what everyone knows, Milshon Pesach. There is other explanation that Hazal tell us. Take the word Pesach, take it, split it to a half. Pesach, split it to a half. The first part is Pe is a mouth. Sah is talking, to tell us that the most important mitzvah on Pesach, beside the matzah and the maror and the 4 cups of wine, we have important mitzvah to talk about the miracle of HaKadosh Baruch Hu done to us when it redeemed us from Egypt. Pesach, that means that our mouths should be talking. That's the two opinions that we have why is it called Pesach. But Pesach have other name. We all know that it's called Hag HaMatzot. נכון? The festival of Matzah. Then we have Hag HaHirut, the Hag of Freedom. We'll see why. And then we have Hag HaAviv. Why Aviv? Why did they call it Hag HaAviv?
Because it's in the spring.
Because in the spring. Okay, let's see if you're right. Anyone have any other opinion? Okay, so that's that the Pesach is an Aviv, it's easy, it's a spring. But why they don't call Hanukkah Hag HaHoref? No, think about it. What, you call it Hag Aviv because it's, there must be more important to it. So we look what is it. So we know that we say that Hag HaMatzot. Why they call it Hag HaMatzot? We all know because when the Jewish people left Egypt, actually, Pharaoh forced us to leave. That means that they kicked us out, the Egyptian and Pharaoh. They didn't have enough time for the bread to rise, and they eat the matzot. So one of the symbols of that festival is matzah, that we eat matzah. That's why it's called Hag HaMatzot. Then we say Hag HaHirut, freedom. Freedom of what? Just from slavery? HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt and made us his nation just because he wants us to be free. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we say Hag HaHirut, what it means, Hirut, freedom? Freedom of what? Misha'abud Ga'aluyot. What does it mean? That we can study Torah. That we should not be like the Egyptian, that worshipping idols. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us back to where? To where our father was. That we can start studying Torah. That's why I call a Hirut. Not only from slavery, Nachon slavery, but to go back to where? To our heritage, to our roots. To know our, obviously, Torah. Because Hazal tell us that Bnei Israel, when they was in Egypt, they reached 49 level of Tumah. You know that? One more level and we wouldn't be redeemed. That means that we reached to such a lower level that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he redeemed us, when he given us the freedom to bring us back to all of those Kedusha. And that's why we count 50 days. We'll speak about it when it's come closer to Shavuot, during the Omer. Why is 50 days? That every day lift up from a different way of Tumah, those 49 days. That on the 50 days day, we receive the Torah. But we say Hag Aviv, the spring, the festival of spring. Does that make sense? You know, you have spring, and if you look at Sukkot, we should call it Hag Hastav then, because that's when the winter starts in Israel. So why we don't call it autumn festival? Nachon, that Pesach happened in Aviv. Aviv is the spring in Eretz Israel, but not because that. If that was the case, we would call it here Aviv also. No, but here is winter. We start winter in Pesach. There's more to it.
But there is a song, Aviv Egia Pesach.
No question.
No answer. If you want the answer, you know. Oh, Gershon. Gershon, there is many writers that write songs. Every song that there is will connect it to our festival. Now, take the word Aviv. Rabotai, to understand what does it mean, let's take the word Aviv. Let's split it to two again. The first two words of Aviv, what we'll get?
Father.
Av, father. Nachon? Av is father. Correct me if I'm wrong. The second part of the word Aviv will give us Yud Bet. Yud Bet, it means 12. What does it mean? That Nisan, Av lekol HaChodashim. What does it mean? That Nisan is the beginning of all the months in a Jewish calendar. Lehavdil, January is for the Gentile. Nachon? Correct me if I'm wrong. Nisan for us, that's the new year. The beginning of all the months. Av lekol HaChodashim. What does it mean, Av lekol HaChodashim? That's the father for all the Jewish months. And what do we celebrate then? Yetziat Mitzrayim, Pesach. So it's come to tell you Hag Aviv. Why? Because in Nisan, that's Tetvav Nisan, that's the day that we celebrate Pesach, and that's the Av, the father for all the months.
So why do we call the Rosh Hashanah?
Very good. Arba'a Rashi Shanim hem. The Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah asks, she say, Arba'a Rashi Shanim hem. There is four kind of shkoach, Oni. Arba'a Rashi Shanim hem. That means that there is four kind of a New Year's. And Rosh Hashanah, what does it mean Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah of what? Sorry? New Year for what? But we said at the beginning of the month. No, not the creation. Who started to count the New Year's? If you're asking. Adam HaRishon. When did Adam HaRishon being created? On the sixth day. Nachon? So it wasn't the beginning of the creation. It was the end of the creation. But on Rosh Hashanah, it's the day of judgment. You understand what I'm saying? It's completely different. Here we're talking about the beginning of the month. It's totally different. You get confused because for many years, you've been focusing how the Gentile look at it. They look at it that when it came, the 31st of December, that's the end of the year. We don't have the end of the year. Kafhet, Kaftet of Adar, Kafhet Adar, we don't celebrate, we don't shoot Mesal in the air, we don't do anything, don't get drunk, you know. Aleph Nisan, that's the beginning. The first, the Havdil, like the 1st of January. Everything got the same. The only difference is that we don't say Tahanun. We're going to get to it now. Why? So we explained what it means Pesach mean. There is any question so far? Why they call it Pesach? Now we understand. When people ask us what it means Pesach, Hag HaHirut, Hag HaMatzot, Hag HaAviv, not about the sun, and not because it's a spring. You follow? Okay. Chodesh Nisan. We all know that from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, from Aleph Nisan, from the beginning of Nisan, we don't say Tahanun Rabotai, we don't say Hespedim, eulogies, we don't say haskarot, we don't do any ta'anit. Everyone understand what is ta'anit?
Except for the firstborn.
Well, get to it. You know, in Hebrew we say pasuk. You know? Vachabiki. That's in Yiddish, vachabiki. The only difference is that ta'anit bechorot, not every gun obligated. There's certain people that don't do. If his first child is a woman, or if the woman have a miscarriage, and she has, again, boy, she doesn't. He doesn't have to do. You follow what I'm saying? Kohen doesn't have to do it. Nachon? Nachon? And Levy? Nachon? Doesn't have to do it. So
When Levy doesn't have to fast on Ta'anit Bechorot?
why do they have to do? Levy doesn't have to fast for Ta'anit Bechorot, if I'm not mistaken. Check the halacha. But the Bechorot that we're talking now, that's the redemption of what's happened in Nachon? For the Makat plagues of Bechorot, if I'm not mistaken. But let's leave it aside for 1 second, I'll come to it. So in the month of Nisan, we don't do any eulogies, we don't say Tahanun, don't say Askarot, we don't do any Ta'anit. Everyone understand what is Ta'anit? Sorry? No. What does mean Ta'anit? Ta'anit, it means that we took on ourselves fasting. There is no fasting during the months of Nisan. For example, for you to understand, it's called Ta'anit Esther. What is Ta'anit Esther? The fast of Esther. You follow? So whenever you hear the word Ta'anit, refer it to fasting. Okay. Why is that? Did you ask yourself why? How come that all the months of Nisan, we don't do anything to do with eulogies, fasting,
Because we're waiting,
no askarot, huh?
we're waiting for it every year from Tammuz.
You're waiting for it from Tammuz. But you're waiting also for Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot,
Yeah,
Shavuot. Shavuot is the day that we receive the Torah.
Yeah.
No, as much. So
No,
suddenly
we're
come
waiting
Pesach,
to
it's
say
more important.
Tachanun.
Huh? Yeah. So why we don't say Tahanut all the months?
Why we not? Because other months, it's not. Okay, like months of Adar is the months of Simcha and all of that.
One day we don't say.
And one day. we-
One day we not say.
Yes,
But Nisan,
Nisan is reminding us of the miracles. So Hashem is busy with miracles in that month. So once you're receiving, you don't say Tachanun because you don't need to Tachanun.
okay. Anyone agree with Gershon? You agree with your dad? Shirkoach, Yossi, I love it. Yosef HaTzadik. So let me explain to you. Why we don't say Tachanun on Chodesh Nisan? In Rosh Chodesh Nisan, on the second year, Rabotai, when the Jewish people, after the Exodus, on the second year, because when the Jewish people left Egypt, Nisan, נכון? Hazal tell us, Benisan nig'alu. That means in the month of Nisan they've been redeemed. Benisan atidim li'gael. That means in the month of Nisan we have a good chance to be redeemed.
Which is a miracle in itself.
Please God. On the second years after the Jewish people left Egypt, in Rosh Chodesh Nisan they completed to build the Mishkan ועשו חנוכת המזבח. That means that they celebrate the ending, the building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and the Mizbeach, Hanukat HaMizbeach. What does it mean? That every day a prince of every tribe used to bring a korban in behalf of his entire tribes. They used to bring the korban, okay, and it used to be a Yom Tov. How many tribes we have? 12. So the first 12 days of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they used to bring sacrifice. That means that for the first 12 days was Yom Tov. Yud Gimel Nisan, Isur Hal. Another day that we're not allowed to say Tachanun. Yudaled Nisan Balayla, Yudaled Nisan Balayla, that's Pesach. Hazal say, from here you see that most of the months No tahanun, all the mans should be without. That's the main reason. Why? Because when the Jewish people was in the desert, each prince brought a korban, and every day was a Yom Tov, Rabotai. That's why we celebrate it. We're waiting for every Yom Tov, not only for the Hag Pesach. Hag Pesach is a day, a special day for us, because it was 13 days of Yom Tov, and then Erev Pesach, and then continue another 7 days of Pesach. Most of the months become Yom Tov. Therefore, we don't say Tahan. Now we understand.
And there's another thing.
Another thing. What's the other thing?
Every Chag, like Hanukkah, you
Yeah.
don't have a Hanukkah kitchen. You don't have a Purim kitchen. But most Jewish people in South Africa have a Pesach kitchen. You see how special Pesach is.
Gershon, you promised me that we're not going to delay the shiur, huh? Okay, we have what we call Parashat HaChodesh. What is Parashat HaChodesh? A Shabbos before, Rabotai, remember, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we read in Sefer Shmot, Parashat Bo.
This year, I think it's
Arafat?
Dafka.
It's
and
next
Rosh
week.
Chodesh.
Yes, exactly. It's next week. Your Friday is Rosh Chodesh.
Shabbos.
Friday, Saturday.
Shabbos.
Friday, Saturday. Yeah. So it said that, if I'm not mistaken, in Parashat Bo, Parashat Bo, chapter 12, verse 2. It said there, "Achodesh azeh lachem
Rosh
Rosh Chodashim." What does it mean, Rosh Chodashim? We explain why it's called Aviv, nachon? That means that the Shabbos before Pesach, we read that version. Not Parsha. The verse. We read that verse in Parashat Bo. Why we have to read it? Why do we have Parashat HaChodesh? You know, we all read Parashat HaChodesh. We explain when we done the Shorim of Purim, you remember we spoke about Shkalim, why we do Parashat Shkalim. But why Parashat HaChodesh? Why not before every Yom Tov or every festival that we have, we don't read a parasha? So Chazal tell us, it's to remind us that now you're entering the month of Nisan. What it means you getting to the month of Nisan? Start preparing for Pesach, the Lord. If you didn't start straight after Purim, they give you another 15 days to start to learn the halachot, 14 days actually. That means that the main reason that we read Parashat HaChodesh, to remind us that Hag Pesach is coming, there is many laws that we have to do. Not only the law, there is mitzvot that we have to do in Pesach. Kimcha de Pisha. What it means, Kimcha de Pisha? To help the need people in Pesach. And now I would like to ask, remember that question, because we're going to speak about it in Agada. We know that in Agada we speak about freedom. Nachon? The Agada is all about the miracle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu done for us. That's a question for you to prepare for next week. But what does the Agada say? Kol dechfin yetev yitzrich. That means whoever need, every person that need, can come in on Pesach night, can come in and eat with us. What's the connection between freedom and feeding poor? That's the question for you for next week, please God. Think about it, try to do homework, let's see if we can get to it. How does it get to us? Remember, freedom and to help the poor. Shabbat HaGadol. The Shabbat before Pesach called Shabbat HaGadol. Why is it called Shabbat HaGadol, the big Shabbos? Hazal explained it's about the big miracle that happened to the Jewish people. What happened to the Jewish people when they was in Egypt? The god of the Egyptian that they used to worship, it was the lamb. HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded them to tie the lamb to the bed, to prepare them that they're going to slaughter that lamb, and that's going to be Korban Pesach. And when they reach the day that they have to slaughter, and Tedvav, Nisan, Balayla, they shechted. י"ד ניסן בלילה, they shechted the 14, the Egyptians saw they got actually getting slaughtered. They couldn't do nothing. The Egyptian, there was the rulers of all the world, couldn't do nothing. To who? To their slave. HaKadosh Baruch Hu come to tell you, I showed you a miracle. Remember that miracle. That's called Shabbat HaGadol, to remind us about the miracle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu done for us just before he took us out to freedom. Number 4. You remember we mentioned number 4. Number 4 in the Haggadah, it's a very active number. What does it say there? It says like this. Sorry. We have 4 cups of wine. Nachon? Who else? What else?
Four
sons.
kids.
4 sons.
4 questions.
4 questions. No? What? 4 cups of wine we mentioned. Let me repeat it. 4 cups of wine. 4 questions. Okay? 4 sons. There's one more thing. 4 redemption. That's it. Shirkoach, Ronnie. Yeah, you see. Ronnie. Remember. Shirkoach, Ronnie. Okay. Why are they? Let's see, why are we celebrating the 4 cups? רבי יוחנן אומר, כנגד 4 לשונות של גאולה. Rabbi Yohanan say, why do we drink the 4 cups of wine? Why? It's the main reason that we have to drink 4 cups of wine. It's for the 4 language, the 4 words of redemption. What are they? והוצאתי, והצלתי, ולקחתי, לא, וגאלתי first, and then ולקחתי. לקחתי is the last one. That means that those the 4 things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu say. First one, I took you out of Egypt. Then I saved you from the Egyptian. Where? On a bank of the sea of weeds. Then וגאלתי, and I redeemed you. And the last one, and I took you and I made you my nation. Okay, so now we understand. That's, who said that? Rabbi Yohanan. המהר"ל, the מהר"ל מפראג, say, why are we drinking 4 cups of wine? Philip, that's what you say. Because in the merit of the 4 mothers, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. That's why, according to the מהר"ל. הלבוש, everyone hear about the לבוש? לבוש?
No.
לבוש called רבי מרדכי יפה. Why did he call it הלבוש, his book הלבוש? הלבוש lived in Europe. And he used to sell sitkit. What it means, sitkit? All different things. You know, cotton, buttons, all different things. Sorry? Okay, that's what you call it. What's happened? One day, a woman saw him, and he was a nice-looking man. And she told him, come, I want to buy some of your goods. Please come to my flat. Yes, he entered, she locked the flat. And she said, listen, you have to make avera with me. She tried to seduce him. He said, look, if you don't mind, I will do that, but give me one chance. Let me wash myself. And can I go and wash my hand? I need the toilet. Yeah, no problem. Here's the toilet. And before he entered the toilet, he said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you take me out of here alive, I'm going to write the same amount of books, that same amount of clothes that I'm wearing. And he jumped, and lo aleinu, you can imagine. The sewage in Europe, it's not so, and that time wasn't so good. Bederech lelo derech, on the way to nowhere, he managed to jump, and he jumped to the sewage. He was from head to toe covered. And he saved, and he didn't done the avera. And when he came out from that, to show his appreciation and to keep his promise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he called all his books on a libush. each one of them a different name, but all about clothes. And that's what he called. So Rabbi Mordechai Yaffe said it's not. And it's a merit of the 4. About I listen to that. Why are we drinking 4 cups of wine? It's a merit that what's happened to the Jewish people, the way that they act in Egypt. What does it mean? Because they didn't change their name. They didn't change their language. They didn't have a sin in immorality. And the 4th one, Shelo hayu ba'im malshinim. You know it's malshin?
Clothing.
Slander. Sorry, what you
Now,
said?
what about clothing? I didn't change the
I say Shelo shinu malbusham. Also, that they didn't change their clothes. Shmam leshonam. Sorry, I didn't mention that. You're right. Shelo hayu ba'im malshinim. What it mean malshinim? People that used to give up one each other to the Egyptians. So in the merit of that, we're drinking 4 cups of wine.
I think that is the most correct one.
Okay, they're all correct. Also, we have to remember that there is other explanation why do we number 4 is very important. And with that, I'm going to conclude. The Shulchan Aruch tells us, 4 hayavim lomar birkat hagomel. That means 4 people obligated to say birkat hagomel, to bench hagomel. And who they are? Yordei Hayam, people that sailing, that gone over the sea. Holchei Hamidbar, people that wander in a desert.
Come out of jail.
Hayotze mibet ha'asurim, a person that came out of jail, number 3. And the 4th one, Hole shenirpa, a sick person that become healthy. Those 4 obligated to say Birkat Hagomel. What's the connection to the 4 cups? All of those 4, Rabotai, wasn't a Jewish people. All of those 4 happened to the Jewish people. What does it mean? To cross the sea, splitting of the sea. Remember? Vayivaka Hayam laharava. That's the sea. Olchei Hamidbar.
They worked 40 years in the desert.
40 years, no wonders. Nachon?
Yeah.
What did we say the next one? Beta Asurim.
Came out of slavery.
They came out of jail. They were slaves. What was the 4th one we say? Ha'chole v'nirpa, a person that was sick and become healthy. That when they was in Egypt, they were sick. Because Hazal tell us, on Ma'amad Har Sinai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cured everyone. Those that didn't have fingers, those that was crippled, handicaps, everything become 100%. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and those merits that you was willing to suffer, number 4 is so important. Now we understand why we have so number 4. May please God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have His mercy on us and will redeem us as soon as possible. I don't want to say only in Pesach because we want it before, please God.